We were doing shloka numbers 17 and 18 together. And last class was a lot of background. I think we've mostly covered 18, even though you didn't realize that we did, but we mostly covered 18. And if somebody could give me just the main takeaways from the last class, um, what stuck with you? I think not with, because it wasn't really for the shloka. What were the main takeaways for each one of you? Perhaps that would be a good way to go. Shalini, you were able to catch up. You did half class, then you like running around.
Yes, I got out. So basically, for me, it was, of course, that we are constantly trying to feel alive in our body and mind, and that's like every action, everything that we do, whether it's exercise to be fit, whether it's writing something. Like for me also, since I've started writing, it's about someone reading it and recognizing it. So either it's your mind or your body, for sure. So that was the main thing that we spoke about at length, about how we are constantly trying to be alive in our body and mind, and we are, even though as Hindus we know that there is a separation between the body and the soul, there is a body and the soul and the Paramatma. uh, we don't really actually live like that. It's not really something that really plays out in the way we act, because it's always the dead body, basically the body which is without the soul is dead, has basically has life because of the soul. um, we are actually trying to make that come alive constantly, because we need recognition, and that's very true. I feel for me myself as well. And the other thing also, then we spoke about how so I think Deepa asked a question about, whether having a desire to um, like perfection was also not correct. And then that whole thing about being on two boats, about acquiring and wanting to acquire also, acquisition also, and about wanting to leave also, and how when we are not able to really do well in our materialistic goals and not rise to a certain level, how we take refuge in partially spiritual this thing.
Hmm.
That also I can relate to it partially, because it's like you hiding away in like you're trying to do both. But then also, one thing from our earlier classes that has stayed with me is that, one, you change your acquisition of material things to ethereal things. You change your acquisition from, say, acquiring, say, a lot of clothes to acquiring a lot of
That is
sahasranam. Yeah,
that is true. We need to continuously evolve in our desire,
yeah, and
but we
also,
don't have to stop working hard. If
yes.
it
So even
doesn't work out, we have to continue to work hard.
and
We
give a
can't
100%.
give a
I think
hundred and
that,
ten, not 100. I always say 110. How does 100 stick with you? 110% with everything. So
yeah,
yeah,
and even though, like you said, we can't the divinity, like we can't always be that, but we have to keep at least aspiring for it.
ex- excellent.
And then
And
one more thing is from that, that's from the earlier class, that acquire and then release, like the flower petal, like you break and then you offer. So you like kind of make a
yes,
flower and offer. So basically, constantly that. And also, I think surrender, because even if you are living in this, even this whole, I feel recognition of that you are trying to live. You're trying to be alive in your mind and body. Even if you recognize that, then gradually you can work on it, I feel.
there's a very interesting thing, यथा दृष्टि तथा सृष्टि. यथा दृष्टि, wherever there is दृष्टि, that's where there is सृष्टि. जहाँ दृष्टि है, वहाँ सृष्टि होगी. So if you are constantly keeping your vision on yourself, then obviously you will grow and transform. जहाँ पर दृष्टि रहेगी, वहाँ transformation होगा ही होगा. There is no question about it.
I remember you mentioning in a yoga class once about
It's
drishti,
from
even
yoga
yoga,
only. Yatha
yeah,
drishti,
yoga
tatha.
asana. Yeah.
That's why, you know, paying the vision points in yoga are very important. But vision points in life are also very important. What are you focusing on? Desire transform कर लो. Transform करके भी अगर sense gratification हो रहा है, तो गलत. Like, we discussed about दान last time, that you transformed it from acquisition to donation, but you're still having the same sense gratification.
Yes, and I agree that even हम अगर anonymously भी देते हैं या हम ट्राई करते हैं कि हमारा नाम नहीं लिखा जाए, तभी भी कहीं ना कहीं अगर माइंड में वो रहता है, कई बार रह जाता है कि हमने ये किया, तो वो
Yeah,
भी
वो definitely रहता है. Ego आता है ना उससे.
हाँ.
Where you're not looking for acknowledgement, you're definitely consecrating or concretizing your ego.
Yeah,
Wherever
absolutely.
you don't bite your nails, wherever you are not looking for acknowledgement, you are constantly putting layers and layers and layers. Oh, I did it without acknowledgement, layer of ego. I did it.
I Yeah, I agree with you
Layers,
because
many layers
uh,
of.
yeah, we had got some rooms done in Akul Devi's temple, and I told Rajesh that I don't like this writing the name which you mentioned last time. But then again, it stays with you that yeah, you did not write the name, so you are better off than others who write the name. So that also is,
And you will not forget to mention you built the rooms in some place.
yeah, correct. Like I said right now.
Right. Not
Yeah,
saying that is bad, for as long as you know what you're doing.
yeah,
Keep your
ab-
drishti on that. You must know what you're doing. You must know this is like, oh, fortifying my ego.
yeah,
For as long as you know, it's fine.
absolutely. I think knowing is a big
Ex-
step forward.
Excellent. Rajshri, did you catch up on the class, beta?
जी दीदी.
Excellent. Do you want to just share your biggest takeaway from the class? Just one.
I think for me, it was majorly surrender. Like whatever you do it without any expectations, without any desire of what the outcome will be.
Yes.
And more than that, also a very minimal towards the last you mentioned acknowledging your limitations. We touched upon that. There are many times where we make excuses. We live in that bubble. Okay, this is so, and that is why I'm not able to do certain things. But knowing that is also as equally important as other factors. Especially, I think for me, it really holds important.
Yeah, that's a very good point. Khushbu mentioned it, and it was a discussion that led from what she said. And, many a times, I will again reiterate, many a times what we do, remember this, I'm all saying this from Yatha Drishti, Tatha Drishti. जहाँ आपकी दृष्टि रहेगी, वहाँ आप consciously काम growth हो सकती है. So sometimes what we do is when we can't do something, when we don't do something, when we are unable to meet our desired goals or expected benchmarks, or we make excuses. Oh, this couldn't be done because. Let's not make those excuses. Even if we make them for the world, let's not believe in them, right? At least be conscious of your limitations. I think that is an amazing thing to take away, and I'm so glad it stuck with you. Great, thanks so much. Sonal, any big takeaways from you? I can't hear you. Not visible, not audible.
Use this for a second. I was saying that I'm not sure specifically what I wasn't able to review, but I was just kind of reading my notes here. I don't know. A lot of these things that we've kind of talked about before. Obviously, it was kind of a review of everything that we had gone into. The acknowledgement piece is something that I'm constantly working on. So that's something that I look at over and over, like what Shalini was just saying about if you don't take an acknowledgement, if you don't take acknowledgement, you have ego around it. If you take acknowledgement, you have ego around it. So it's kind of like this
Different kind of ego. If you if you want acknowledgement, you want somebody to say something. So it's more externalized ego. But remember, there's also a different kind of ego, like, an internal ego that continues to layer up, which is, I am better than others. I am good. I have done a good thing. I am above reproach. I am above failure. I am above tragedy because I've done so much good. This I've done so much good is an ego. Whether or not the world acknowledges it, you carry it with you. It shows that chip on your shoulder is always visible, very visible to the world around you. Yeah. You should watch me when I've done like your Shati Havans. When I've done 10 of them in one go, in one sitting, it's like, well, I am so full of ego at that time. I can't even believe it myself. At
Mm.
least be aware. At least be aware. So that's a great one.
So was it this class where we were talking about how 99.9% of us end up being in mediocrity? I'm not sure if it was in this one,
So
but
I
I was just
remember I remember Manu commenting on it. So for sure it was this class.
it was before even that you said that 99.9%. I always have had this idea. I'm like, everything I do is mediocre. And so there's a combination, like, yes, I am mediocre because I'm not in that 1%, but I don't want to not have responsibility to push myself to that 110% that you're talking about. So it's this like seeing your limitations and yet also pushing through what we see as our ceiling, and we've
Right.
talked about this before, but that constant pushing of that ceiling of what we actually think we can do.
Right. Well, see, mediocrity is something I do want to comment on a little, and I would like for Manu to pay attention here. So many a times, what we do is we make excuses. Again, this is all our own excuses. When we can't achieve something in the material world, we make excuses. Oh, okay, fine, doesn't matter. I'm doing my, philosophical study, or I'm taking care of my parents, or I'm required here. That's why I cannot do action somewhere else. I have to bring up my child. I have to take care of this responsibility, and you blow it out of proportion, right? So you blow some little thing that you're doing, maybe taking care of your pregnant wife or your small kid or your old parents, or doing puja in, because this is Shravan Mass, you're doing puja or doing yoga. You take something very small and mundane and you blow it out of proportion in your head. This is not happening
Mm.
in reality for other people, but you blow it out of proportion in your head and you say, I am doing so much. And that's your excuse for not doing so much other stuff that you should be doing or you are capable of doing, right?
So
So and that's what I meant by mediocrity. So let's not
yeah.
confuse ourselves with what is mediocrity. When I say mediocrity, I mean we're all living in this make believe where we're not doing enough on that side, on that end of the spectrum, and we're not doing enough on this end of the spectrum. And that's why I said mediocrity. Yeah, I'm not talking about you guys going through residency. There is no mediocrity in that. So when a doctor goes through residency, 19 hours, responsible for patients' lives, you have no time to think. You're living 110%. That's not mediocre.
So, I was thinking that in terms of my current, like, I'm overwhelmed with the amount of work I have to do, and then my clinic work, and then moving, it's just been out of control. And my practices have slowly started, I mean, I was doing like 2 hours a day, 2.5 hours a day. And then I use the excuse that I'm, and I was like, I have
No, no,
so
Sonal.
much, I
See, that
can't.
is natural. Remember, life happens in waves. So
Yeah.
philosophy or practices or that spiritual part of life and the material part of life, if you exert yourself in one area, the other will push up. And then you
Right.
exert yourself in
Okay.
the other area, the other will push up. So this
Right.
will always come in waves. This is not the mediocrity that I'm talking about. You know what I'm
Okay.
talking about, right? Everybody knows what I'm talking about. Raise your hands if you've not understood what I'm talking about. We make excuses. We take small activities. I'm not talking about you. You're constantly doing a lot. But we do small activities, like Manu will go and get milk in the morning and think he's done for the day. He's contributed to the house, right? He's I just said I'm not saying he's not contributing to the house. I'm just saying that we take small activities or small contributions and we blow them out of proportion in our heads. And then we make excuses for why we are not doing this, that, or the other, because I have this big responsibility. So you should not have time. You should be giving 110% all the time. And if you catch yourself making this excuse, create the time, create the opportunity. Don't make this excuse. Don't blow something really mundane, really small, something which is your duty. Don't blow it out of proportion in your head. That's what I mean by mediocrity, not what you do. All right. Big takeaways for Manu. You did attend the last class, so I can ask you.
Me?
Yeah.
So my takeaway from last class was that the body and mind are dead, and so it is the soul which, when it comes, it makes the body alive. Am I audible? And
It's breaking up for me a little bit, but I don't know if it's just me.
No, it's everybody.
I just switch off. Yeah. So and aspirations and desires are related to being recognized, and when the aspiration of the mind and body is to be recognized.
Excellent. That's an excellent point.
That was the point you said. And say that you have to rise above these small differentiation. जो रामकृष्ण परमहंस की कहानी आपने बताई थी, जिसमें उन्होंने माता के लिए भी जनेऊ करा दिया था. So मेल and female में differentiation नहीं बताए थे. And life is
Judgment.
not
Manu, mostly that one is you should not have judgment. Something is male, something is female, something is good, something is bad, something is decent, something is indecent. There should be no judgment. Yesterday, Deepa had recommended when she was here. I actually pushed myself to watch this movie, Gangubai something. It's an Alia Bhatt movie. And she portrays the character of a prostitute, and the whole movie is about fighting for a non-judgmental approach to the sex workers. It's just no judgment. सही है, गलत है, आदमी है, औरत है, ये जजमेंट ही हटा दो. कर सकता है, नहीं कर सकता, जजमेंट ही हटा दो. Judgment. No judgment. No coloring, no.
And then important thing you said was that life is not an intrinsic character of the body and the mind. So
Yes.
and what you should do, I think the goal is that you should know what is your mind and body, and you should know that what is your soul, and you should differentiate between that.
It's not always possible, but you should keep your drishti there. See, it's not always possible to distinguish. But when you find yourself in an acquisitive mode, when you find yourself in a space where you want to display something, where you want acknowledgement, where you want visibility, now, just remember, be mindful, keep your drishti there. That these are characteristics that are coming from your material being, not characteristics of the soul. Yeah, just be mindful. That is it. You cannot distinguish. It is very hard. I gave you all the tools that you can possibly use to keep at least awareness around it, that this is happening. Excellent. Anything else?
One thing that stayed back was, which you said that you are here in this world to be a part of the party and you should enjoy it.
Definitely enjoy it. And somebody who is making a lot of money is also enjoying. Somebody who's not, who's doing dan and seva is also enjoying. Somebody who's doing only Hari Naam ka Jap Kabir is also enjoying. Right?
So
Find
I think you said that this world is the party that God has created in His creation, and
correct.
also He
That
wants
is why the
permission for
basic
this
nature that you have is of
world.
consumption. Basic nature is of consumption. That is why God gave the material body, the basic nature is consumption. It is definitely a party.
And if you're enjoying this party, God would be happy. So
Definitely.
something like
No problem with that. And you can continue to have material aspirations till you are able to replace them with something else, but continue to enjoy yourself. Don't be sad in anything. That is the basic message. Don't be upset. Don't be sad. Don't be disappointed. And even if something motivates you, or there are physical triggers that make you sad, like, Vishwani lost her grandmother, or Palomi lost her mother. These are very sad events in our lives, but try and contract the sadness as much as possible. There must be something to celebrate. There has to be something to celebrate. It is definitely a party. Yeah. Something to learn, something to grow, somewhere new. If room has been created, हम लोग दिल्ली से हैं, we are from Delhi, and we know November, December, hard to breathe because the villagers are burning their fields, burning, burning the leftover crop and creating space. So if you have put Agni to something, if some human being has died, it has also created space for new relationships in your life. Allow those relationships to come, sow seeds for those relationships to grow. Take care, nurture those relationships. Still, they also move away, they also follow me, they also go away. Don't stay in this sadness for too long. Sadness is not good. Excellent. Wonderful. Anybody else with big takeaways? Both? Any big thing that stuck with you?
No, Siri. Maybe
Namaste.
I think it has been already covered, and I think the only thing that you give 110% whatever you do, and do the action with the thing that I'm not the doer. So don't take the ownership of anything.
Vishwani, any thoughts?
Yeah, my biggest takeaway was don't sleepwalk through life. And the fact that, I mean, on a personal level, what really hit home from the last couple of classes was how you can get to your goal either by acquiring or by letting go. I think both um, everyone who spoke touched upon it, but nivritti and how you shouldn't just want something and not want something. So the whole dropping aspect and how you said that, the entire goal of not just this shloka, but what we've been discussing, it's actually not to ask you to change your patterns. It's just everything comes from your mind, whether it's the pain, it's the suffering. And like you've just repeated again, that as long as you're aware you're coming from ego, it's good. I mean, not it's good, but that's enough that you need
That's
to
enough.
be aware.
Yes.
And hence, for me, the biggest takeaway was just don't sleepwalk through life. Like we are fortunate enough to be given this birth. And, it's a real shame and it's a real waste if we decide to just, how I used to always say that you've been given this birth for a reason. Don't just like live with a veil. I think that is very, very important. The rest, of course, was covered.
Excellent. Excellent. Deepak, any thoughts?
I think my big takeaway was like how we constantly want to be seen, acknowledged, and validated because matter is inert and it borrows the property of life from the self, the capital S self. And so the constant need to be validated is predominant among us. But then we delude ourselves into thinking that, okay, you gave us the example of this king who lived in the Buddha's times who who was very successful, so thought a lot about himself, but also very promiscuous. And then he meets the Buddha, and the Buddha says ki ye theek nahi hai. I think some interaction happens and he realizes. So then he gives up everything. He stops ruling the kingdom. He stops the promiscuity. He basically like renounces everything, and then he starts living in the pride of having done that. So the Buddha says even that is wrong, right? Like, so extreme renunciation and extreme enjoyment, but as long as you're thickening your ego and you're constantly thinking about it, you're not doing the work of evolving. So it's essentially remaining neutral and detached from your basically saprapancha, good, bad, acquisition, renunciation in extreme, if you're constantly thinking about it. But you were giving an example of someone who's living at 110%.
Yes, I was.
Yeah, and still doing the wrong thing in that, like,
Not the
these
wrong
people
thing. Just there has to be uh, desire has to be dropped at desire has to be dropped 100%. And this is what is being said in the shloka. Let's look at the shloka. I think you will understand it better if you look at it. We finished with this. Avinashi tu tadvidhi yena sarvamidam tatam vinasham avyasya na kaschit kartum arhati. Everybody understands the shloka? Yeah, okay. This is the shloka in question. Antavanta ime deha nityas yokta sharirinaha. Let's understand the words, then we'll go on to understand what it means. Antavanta ime deha. There is no possibility that your body can be eternal. It is not possible. It is constantly dying. If you have been around a dead body, you know it starts decaying and degenerating very quickly. But you don't even have to look at the dead body. Look at yourself. Say, supposing you couldn't take a bath for 2 days, what will happen? You don't brush your teeth one day. You don't brush your teeth. Don't wash your hair for 15 days. What will happen? Are you stinky or not? Who says that they're not stinky? Yeah? Are you stinky or not? Why are you like, it's not necessary that it is all coming from dirt. Is it coming from dirt sometimes? रात को सोए सुबह उठे दांत में से बदबू क्यों आ रही है? Is it dirt? Did you acquire dirt while you were sleeping? You weren't even doing anything. You are in bed when you are sick. You are in bed for 3 days. You didn't go out anywhere. You didn't contract any dirt. What is happening? Huh? What is happening? क्या हो रहा है बेटा?
Body gets affected very fast due to the outside environment, like dirt collects and
Dirt is not dirt. What is happening? Yes or no?
I mean, in your mouth, it's like your microbiome. And so like there's anaerobic bacteria in your mouth, and that kind of collects and
We are
causes breakdown.
90% bacteria only, or perhaps
Right.
at least 50% bacteria, if not 90%.
Right.
So imagine
but-
that bacteria is the creating in living and creating mucus and dying, and that's why all this nonsense that is happening. It's not coming from outside. Remember that. You are a part of you, whether it is bacteria or it is your cells or it is whatever it is about you, is constantly dying. There is constant death in you. That is why you age. That is why you become old, you have diseases, you have because you are, anyway, even if you do not consider sickness as a cause. You yourself are constantly dying. The reason why you are appearing to be alive is because prana is there. Prana is a part of the soul. Prana is there, soul is there. Soul keeps you here. Soul keeps these senses awake. Soul keeps this body, however limited. It will have circulation. It will have breath. For as long as there is breath, there is heartbeat, there is life. What keeps us alive? The body doesn't keep us alive. The body's characteristic is it is dead. In fact, it constantly sheds, it constantly dies. Every day it dies. And you see the symptoms, you don't acknowledge them. Everybody is dying on a constant basis. You're not living, you're dying on a constant. Antavanta ime deha. And finally, anyways, this is its character. So when the soul leaves, when the soul departs, this character was mitigated, minimized, contained, controlled, slowed. You will find some saints or very people who are in touch with their divinity, their soul. You will find a youthful characteristic around them there. They don't, even with age, you will find that either there are no wrinkles or there's something. You will always find that they kind of defy the laws of the body because of the vibrance of the soul. You know? The vibrancy of the soul keeps them more alive than all of us. Because
Which
soul has
people
the
are these?
character of aliveness. Sorry.
Sorry, which people are these, you say? Which type of people? किस
Somebody
टाइप के लोग होते हैं जो ऐसे होते हैं?
Did somebody understand that question?
I guess he's talking to someone else.
I don't think so. He's asking a question. Are you asking what kind of people are like this? Some saints. Saints. Saints who are, you don't have to go far. If somebody is really a devotee, Hare Rama, Hare Krishna, say go see them. No, they have some youthful. There is, when you are closer to the soul, when your soul is radiating, when you are not acquiring too much baggage, you will find that there's a youthful characteristic, which is very vibrancy, which is very visible. Very visible. And it may not be everywhere. It's not all of it. It's not like these people don't age, these people don't have disease. They go through their aging, their disease, their sickness, their prarabdha continues to play out. But there is a certain vibrancy that you will find yourself in presence of because their soul is not, remember we talked about how the soul is in a dark room. Their soul is not in a dark room. Somehow the light is coming out. There's more light there. So you will be able to visually see that light. It's not that age doesn't affect them. It's not that disease doesn't affect them. Definitely does. They will have to go through their life pattern. But the vibrancy is very visible. Like for Buddha, it was said that he used to emanate a very beautiful smell. He was very beautiful smelling. And that can be true for many people who reach that stage of unison with the self. That the decay of the body does not happen anymore. Where your soul is very vibrant. And we will smell, but Buddha didn't smell. So like that. So antavanta ime deha. The deha, the body, is definitely dying. It's constantly dying. That is the character of the body. It is the character of this material construct. Even when it is kept alive by the soul, you can see the evidence that it is constantly dying. It's not that it is without evidence. You can see the evidence for this, that it is constantly in a state of decline. Yeah, you yourself can acknowledge you cannot run as much as you could at 5. You cannot party as much as you could at 15. Yeah, you can't work as hard as you could at 25 now that you're 45. No, you gone are the days when you could spend 15 hours at work. Not possible. In fact, some spiritual masters always proclaim you have, when should you practice spirituality? I was talking to Vishwani yesterday, about a few days ago, about this. Yeah, when should you practice spirituality or philosophy or practice these practices of um, raising your consciousness? When you're young, when you have the energy. This is not the activity for old age. Old age doesn't have any energy. How many hours of yoga can you do in old age? How can you even sit in Padmasana in old age? Right? So this is not activities for old age. These are activities for younger age, when you have energy. So you definitely, without digressing, you definitely have evidence that the body is constantly dying because you are not what you used to be. You have more evidence on a daily basis. You have evidence that it is dying and decaying. Not only when it is dead does it decay, but even daily it is dying and decaying. You have evidence for that. You have to shower, you have to brush, you have to wear clean clothes every day. Otherwise, a dying, decaying, dead body that you're carrying along with you, with your beautiful eternal soul, is going to make other people's lives miserable. Is going to invade their senses in a very hard fashion. Yeah. No, it's constant. Antavanta ime deha. Clear? The deha is definitely, the characteristic is of being mortal, of being constantly approaching death. So antavanta ime deha nitya syoktaha sharirana. Nitya uktaha nityasya uktaha sharirana. And deha is dying. And nityasya. Nityasya means eternal. Always there. Always, always, always there. What is always there? Nityasta uktva shariranaha. Shariri, the soul. Sharir is dying, Shariri is Nityasya. Shariri is the soul. So, Nityasya Uktaha Shariri. And Uktaha means to say. So Nityasya, I'm saying this is, or it is said that the Sharirini is Nityasya. Eternal. Now, we have proof that the body dies. But we do not have proof that the soul is eternal. Big problem. Do not have proof that the soul is eternal. So he clarifies that. Anashino aprameyasya. He is clarifying. It's always nitya, eternal. Anashino, indestructible. and aprameyasya. Aprameyasya means, here he is explaining, it is anashino, cannot be destroyed, nityasya, eternal, and then the third thing he says, which is the clarification of everything, aprameyasya. Aprameyasya means जिसका प्रमाण नहीं है, प्रमाण, अप्रमाण, जिसका प्रमाण नहीं है, अप्रमेयस्य. He's saying why, and he's uses this word अप्रमेयस्य, प्रमाण नहीं. प्रमाण क्या होता है? We studied, for those of you who studied the Yoga Sutras, and there are two people here, in the first chapter we extensively studied praman. Remember, guys? I mean, I'm not going to ask you to quote on it because you won't be able to. Praman is proof, yes. Yeah. How do you know something is? How do you know something is? You need praman for that. You need proof for that, right? Either you can visibly verify it, or you can be told that it is there. Yeah. Or you have seen it in the past that it was there, so you can extrapolate that it is there. So there are many kinds of praman. We talked about these kinds of, they are extensively discussed in the Yoga Sutras, where there is a deep dive into how do we know something is there. So Lord Krishna here is saying that aprameya se iska praman nahi hai. Praman kisse hum gather karte hain? Praman, proof. How do we gather proof? We gather proof from, tell me, what is the modus operandi of gathering proof? If
For
you,
us, it's eyes. I mean, usually eyes and ears are what helps us. The senses, sensory perception for
so
us.
the five senses can give you proof. Observation also, follow me, observation comes from senses only, no? Because those are your tools to observe. Eyes, nose, ears, these are skin. Or mind, like I said, if you had previous knowledge, maybe you have historic data, maybe you were told by a very authenticated source. Your mind can also be proof. So mind and the senses are the proof gathering organs. The senses, yes, and when you experiment also, Manu, experimenting will also help you gather. This is all scientific discovery, like you're thinking proof as in scientific discovery. That also ultimately something physically has to be proven, right? Something physically has to be proven, like you have to verify it, that it materially exists. Right. And how do you verify it materially exists? With your eyes, with your senses, with your mind. When he's saying that, Lord Krishna is saying that the shariri, the soul, is aprameyasya. Anything, any tool, any object that you use to identify something is an object, right? You're using objective thinking, objective perception, right? Your objective senses. Any object that you use to identify an object cannot be used over here. Your five senses cannot be used, your mind cannot be used, your sensory perception cannot be used, your intellect cannot be used. Any object that will help you provide proof cannot be used for the verification of the soul. Because it also has, aside from being nityasya, aside from being anashino, it is also aprameyasya. It is not something that you can gather proof for. Validated proof. And this goes back to our discussion. What is the language to communicate? What is the activity to identify? There cannot be any.
Silence and inaction.
Exactly. When you drop your senses, so you have to continuously contract your senses. Yoga or any kind of meditation practices will tell you to do that. Contract your senses. You have to contract your senses, completely stop seeing, stop believing all this, that adambar that is outside. Adambar meaning all this maya or illusion that is there outside. So contract your senses, drop your ego. I'm giving you the 3-step rule that people prescribe. 3 things that need to be done. Contract your ego, contract your senses, drop your ego. How do you drop your ego? If you're constantly in service, then you don't have ego. Not service that gives you ego. So continue to remain in this state of dhan, giving. And the third thing, very important, extremely important, is stay content no matter what. Stay in a state of non-flux or contentment, somehow. If you're able to do these, cultivate these 3, then you will be able to ascertain the existence of this subject. What is the subject? The subject in you, everything else is the object of you. The subject of you is your shariri. Objects can only identify objects, cannot understand, identify, watch, begin to comprehend the subject. It's not possible. So when you contract your senses, subjugate your ego, and make your mind still, not getting affected by anything, means you're not creating stories in your head. When something good happens, also we create stories, mind goes on a overdrive. When something bad happens, also we create stories, mind goes on an overdrive. So what is dharma or the shastras? What are they prescribing? They are prescribing three things to know your soul, to identify your soul, to have proof that the soul is there. Cannot be done through senses, cannot be done through mind. There is no activity that you can do that will help you get there. खाली अगर दान ही करेंगे तो उससे आप नहीं पहुंचेंगे वहां पे. खाली मेडिटेशन ही करेंगे तो भी आप नहीं पहुंचेंगे वहां पे. ये तीनों चीजें करनी है. क्या 3 चीजें? Contraction of the senses, quelling of the ego, and stability of the mind. Everybody with me? These 3 are required for you to have proof. Which means these 3, what do these 3 in combination, what do? They remove the objectivity from you. The senses, the mind, the ego, ये 3 हटा दो तो soul दिखेगा. इससे soul नहीं दिखेगा. खुशबू नींद आ रही है, बहुत बोरिंग क्लास है.
No, Didi. I've been up since 5 today, so it's been a really long and a hard day. And I slept pretty late last night.
Okay. Don't make excuses. Give 110. Go watch
Yes.
movies and come. Does everybody understand this? Yeah. Stop your mind, drop your ego, and contract your senses. So if you are ever in doubt, how do you get to samadhi? Remember these 3. You cannot fail. Stop your mind, Drop your ego and contract your senses. Then you will be able to see the soul. Otherwise, it is aprameyasya. Aprameyasya is a characteristic of the soul, cannot be evaluated by mind, by ego, or by senses. Cannot see it, you cannot perceive it. Yes.
So we kind of talked about this in the Eightfold Path, the Ashtanga stuff, but is there an order in this though? I mean, like you're kind of flipping it around, and I'm thinking about myself, and just the way that I need to do it. And it seems like
it is constant.
You originally said
you don't have to have an order to this. It is constant. Sometimes your mind can grow your ego, sometimes your senses can grow your ego, sometimes your ego can activate your senses, sometimes your mind can activate your senses, and all permutations and combinations can happen, right? So there's no logical way of, it's not like if you close your eyes and contract your senses first, your mind will be easier. Anybody who's done vipassana, for example, will tell you that is not true.
So I was thinking of, in terms of contraction of senses though, it's hard to do that until you've done the other two. Right? I mean,
no, I mean, again, I will say practices like vipassana tell you to do it the other way, right?
I know, but it's so much harder that way. I mean, having done vipassana,
harder or softer or preferable, non-preferable, all three have to be achieved. आप आँख ऐसे पकड़ो, कैसे भी पकड़ो, तीनों पकड़ना पड़ेगा. Whatever works for you, what hasn't worked for you, what is not working for you, be watchful, it will transform. Don't beat yourself up, don't create violence, don't create more prapanch, don't create more mental pictures that this is not working or this is working. Sometimes we do vipassana, you hear, talk to Deepa about vipassana. इतना प्रपंच है विपासना में भी, इतनी अच्छी चीज है, इतना बढ़िया है, इतना ये ट्रांसफॉर्मेशनल है, हर बार इतना दिमाग चलता है उसका विपासना में भी, खाली विपासना के बारे में बात करने के लिए भी इतना दिमाग चलता है. तो अच्छा भी काम किया, योगा भी किया, उसके बाद उसका प्रपंच बना दिया. Mind is expanded.
So this is what I found in most Vipassana practitioners, actually, because none of them have stilled their minds. Because I've done Vipassana multiple times and nobody has done the work to still their mind or drop the ego before they start Vipassana. So then they're in it in 20 years from now, and then they have an issue, right?
There is no issue. Going any which way is fine. Don't have judgments in your head. Any way is fine. And see, Sonal, there is the biggest problem for an 8 is judgment. So remember that. Remember that. Drop it. Ego नहीं है, इसको judgment बोलते हैं. ऐसा होना चाहिए कि वैसा होना चाहिए भी जजमेंट है. कैसा भी नहीं होना चाहिए, जिस तरह से हो जाए. फकीरी में हो जाए तो फकीरी में, गरीबी में हो जाए तो गरीबी में, और ऑडी में हो जाए तो ऑडी में, क्या फर्क पड़ता है? इट डजंट मैटर. No judgment. Any way you can go at it. What are the 3 things? Either way, you can start from anywhere. Contract your senses, drop your ego, still your mind, or drop your ego, contract your senses, still your mind, or still your mind, drop your ego, contract your senses. Doesn't matter. There is no sequence to this. Any place is a good place to begin. Any beginning is an auspicious beginning. Yes, Khushbu.
So my question is, I have a confusion when you say soul. Soul, we cannot see soul using our senses and the mind, which is the organ to prove anything. Now, when we get intuitions, okay, when we get an inner voice which tells us, don't do this or do this, is it the mind or is it the soul, or is it the intuition, or are all these three separate or same? When we get from within that call, okay, don't do it, go for it, do it, what is that?
That is also your mind. It is coming from your prarabdha. There is a pattern in your mind, there is a set image in your mind, there's a projection of the mind. The mind is very powerful. People who work with the mind will tell you there is immense capability only using 10% or 5% or 2% of it. So all that untapped potential that you have not explored is coming out. That is not the soul. Remember, I said the soul doesn't want to be seen or heard.
Why? Why is that?
Because that is juxtaposed. You missed the classes where I was explaining this, below me. It's juxtaposed to the need of the mind and the body. The mind and the body want to be seen, want to be heard, want to be alive. The soul is alive. When somebody has an essential quality of vibrance, of life, of eternity. And in the last class also, in some other class also, I discussed no Shiva. The whole mythical character of Shiva, does it want to be seen? Does it want to be heard? Does it wear beautiful clothes? That is soul. That is the essential character of consciousness. Because it is so vibrant, it is so alive, it is so eternal, it doesn't need to prove it. It doesn't need to
Okay.
celebrate it.
Yeah. Okay.
But go through the classes, you will understand it better.
Yeah, definitely.
So when somebody dies, like in your case, you're still grieving your mother, and you're like, I can't feel her, I can't see her, I can't talk to her anymore, because she's in that state of the soul, which is alive, which is very much there, but it will not make itself known, not make itself its presence felt. Doesn't mean it is not there. How will you know that it is there? Only when you are able to contract your senses, drop your ego, still your mind, and you're able to get in touch with the soul. You're able to, when that becomes palpable to you, only then you'd be able to experience another soul or the other souls for that matter.
So how can we explain to a 6-year-old the concept of soul?
Don't explain to a 6-year-old the concept of soul. You teach them the Bhagwat Gita, you tell them to memorize it. You go to a primary school, what do they tell children to do? Learn things. You don't teach the concept of soul to a 6-year-old. You tell them to learn the Bhagavad Gita.
Okay, so this question is coming from the fact that my 7-year-old constantly asks me why Nani became a star, why Nani became a star. I just told him that she became a star and she's shining up in the sky. So when he constantly asks me, I feel that he needs to understand that concept. But then I just leave it away with the concept, okay, she's the star, she's watching us. So
You were a star, you came to us, now you are going to be with us for a while, then you'll also become a star. Everybody becomes a star. I will also become a star. We're all coming from stars only. We're beautiful celestial beings. We're not mortal beings. We came here to enjoy each other for a little time. We have the opportunity to play out our prarabdha karma. It's very easy to explain. 6-year-olds will not pester you if you give them the whole concept. You're giving them half the picture because you have a limited judgment that this was a bad thing to happen.
yeah,
You're not telling him he's also coming from a star.
yeah.
How did you come? Why are we only celebrating 6 years? Because there was a time when you were a star. Everybody becomes a star. So when you have your judgments and your pain and suffering, then you will not be able to see the full picture. And you're actually suffering because you're not seeing the full picture. When the 6-year-old cannot find the 5-year-old in him, obviously he understands the concept of death. Who doesn't? But you're celebrating birthday, so you're giving him the wrong message. And therefore it'll be hard for you to explain it to him. Right? Got it? And I'm not commenting on your parenting skills, just saying, maybe you want to approach it differently.
Yes. Thank you.
Going back to the shloka. So everybody understands Antavanta ime deha nitya sukta sharirinaha anashi anashino aprameyasya. Everybody got this? He's clarifying it. He's saying Antavanta ime deha, that maybe Arjun will understand. Nitya sukta sharirinaha. But because we have evidence that the body is going to die, we have no evidence that the Sharirini is going to live. He's saying, sorry, you cannot get evidence for that. It is Anashino, but also Aprameyasya. It does not give you proof. You cannot have proof that it exists. Tasmad Yudhyasva Bharata. Therefore, Tasmad Yudh karo Arjun. You should fight Arjun. Yudhyasva Bharata Arjun. O person, O human being from a great lineage, from Bharat's lineage, where whatever is given to you, you have done 110% to that. Whatever was given to you, whatever was your duty, you have always lived up to 110%. You come from those you're a descendant of that lineage. You come from that lineage. That's why Bharata is meant. This is not Krishna telling Arjun, and this is constantly highlighted, so I'm continuing to highlight it. It's not Krishna telling Arjun fight, because Krishna doesn't want the fight or anything. He's saying, do not fight because you're making up stupid reasons. He's trying to do nivritti, kill your stupid ideas around it. Kill Arjun's stupid ideas. Do not have any illusions that you are killing, that he'll say in the next shloka. Do not have any stupid ideas that the soul dies or the body dies or anything dies here. The body is already dying. It is dead every single day. It is brought back to life by the soul. Yeah. And the soul cannot be died, cannot die, cannot be destroyed, but also cannot be measured. So there cannot be any proof for this. It exists. But the fact that you exist, your organs exist, your sense organs exist, it cannot happen. In previous shloka only he said what the proof is. What is the proof? सब चीज में soul ही soul है. The fact that it manifests means it has soul. So soul exists because when the soul is not there, we can see the person's dead. So the soul is all pervading. It gives you the consciousness, it gives you the mind, it gives you everything. It brings all of these things to life. Imagine you are running a battery operated toy. The battery finishes. There's no reason to lament on that. In this case, imagine the battery is eternal, but the toy has a limited life. The body is dying. Battery is eternal, body is dying. But we are only able to see the toy. We are not able to see the battery. It's not visible. So, antavanta ime deha Nityasyokta sharirina anashino apramayasya tasmad yuddhasva bharata. Therefore, fight, Arjun. You came here to fight. I'm your Sarthi. You requested me to. You've been preparing for this for so long. Sometimes, when you're looking after kids, or when you're in a marriage, or when you're in any relationship, you get to a point. You're in the relationship. You're in the marriage. You're looking after. You get to a point where you say, "I can't do this. This is too much. This is not possible. This is not. I cannot continue to be like this or do this." And some loved one, or some, hopefully, more conscientious person around you will start to counsel you. No, no, don't worry. This is not important. This is, don't look at this. Don't look at this. Come on. Now kiss each other. So, or, smile, hug, and make up, or, get back to whatever was the course of action. When somebody says this, they are not instructing you to be in that relationship, are they? You are already in that relationship. Like Arjun is already on the battlefield. But in the battlefield, he grew doubts. In the battlefield, he's grown doubts. Like, you can, in your relationships, or in your actions, in your activities, sometimes you can have doubts. And because of those doubts, you may not, at some point, you may take a pause. So Krishna is the counsel who's explaining to Arjun this whole detailed explanation of soul and matter, and saying, therefore, fight, Arjun. Don't think so much about it. Like, marry, go back. You're a good mother. You're a good wife. You're a good husband. You're a good father. You're a good sister. You're a good brother. Like, how somebody would counsel you. Look at what was bothering you, address it, and then say, this is not important. Go back to your fight. Go back to Tasmad Yudhyasva Bharata. So every time Krishna says fight, remember, this is not Krishna's instruction, fight. It's Arjun's dharma to fight. And in the dharma, whatever are the obstacles, Krishna is clarifying those obstacles. Like, when somebody is grieving, it seems like life's come to a standstill. You're doing the activities, but life's come to a standstill. So when such a person is being counseled in this state of mental inagility or stoicness that you have achieved, you are unable to move, somebody will give you reasons, look at this, look at this, look at this. Get on, live. That's what Krishna is doing. Your dharma, you fulfill it. Whatever is your dharma, whatever dharma prescribes. Tasmad yudhyasva bharata. True for anybody here as well. You cannot kill the soul. The soul is alive. The soul is not visible. That is also a characteristic. Just like it is alive, it cannot be killed. It is eternal. Another characteristic is that it is not provable. You cannot use your senses or your activity, any activity, to prove it. If you make yoga the activity, meditation the activity, even what were we talking about? What meditation?
Vipassana.
Oh yeah, Vipassana. If you make Vipassana your activity, anything you make your activity, you cannot get there. Activities will not get you there. Going through a yoga class, or going through a Geeta class, or going through a meditation will not make your departed loved one's soul manifest. It is not going to do that. Not going to happen. because it is aprameyasya. It cannot be proven by the senses. You have to stop making everything an activity. You have to stop your mind. You have to drop your ego. You have to contract your senses to understand what is all pervading in all of us. एक का सोल पता चला तो पूरी दुनिया का सोल पता चल जाएगा. कोई डिफरेंस ही नहीं है. जो हैं और जो नहीं है उसमें भी कोई डिफरेंस नहीं है. People who are here visible with us and people who are departed, who are not with us, there is no difference. You will be able to see everything. But the path to get there is threefold. Drop your ego, stop your mind, and contract your senses. And here, Arjun is being told, भाई ऐसा ही है और तुम करो जो करने आए हो. लड़ने आए हो तो लड़ो. जो तुम करने आए हो, जो भरत के वंशज हो. Bharat was a very duty-bound king. So whatever is your duty, you do that duty. What are you struggling with? Fair. Any questions? Everybody understood the whole shloka? We had discussed this already, so I'm just putting it in perspective. No questions today? Good. No deep philosophical questions. How do we do it? How do we get there? Because it is aprameyasya, not provable. Yes, Manu.
यहाँ पे भारत ये अर्जुन को बोल रहे हैं.
Yes. Bharatah, like, in Sanskrit, you can call somebody by their grandfather's name or their father's name, like that. So this is the lineage's name.
Lineage of.
Like if I say, hey, Kaushik, right? So that's how he's addressing Arjun. Now, nobody is deeply thinking about their, lineage. Kaushik doesn't mean much to you unless you really know anything about Kaushik Rishi. Do you know anything about Kaushik Rishi? So it doesn't mean much to you. It's just a name. But here there's also a reference, and this is Arjun that we're talking about. He's aware of his ancestors. He's aware of the lineage. He's aware of his duty. He's been living up to it for all his life. Right. So when he is being addressed as Bharata, there is it's a whole lot more loaded than when I call you Kaushik.
Kind of him to live up to that name. So.
But what people
Asking
like
him to live up to that name.
asking him to live up to his lineage. All right. Any other questions? All right. So 17 done, 18 done. Next time we'll start with 19. Okay. Thank you so much. Have a nice week. I'll see you next week. Namaste.
Namaste.